Alright, and here we are. Young Goofeth is going to be male, as was to be expected. He is a half-elf. I'm sorry, this character generation may take a while, because I'm also going to explain the character. So again, if you're not really interested in in-depth information like that, just skip ahead to the next video. This video is just going to be character generation, lest you be bored. And leave a testy comment about it. He's a half-elf. As I mentioned in the little introduction video that I made, Goofeth's mother was a human and his father was an elf. He never knew his father. He was born in a little village, I think somewhere around the Sword Coast, probably the northeastern Sword Coast. And it was a pretty remote village. And actually, something horrible happened to that village. We don't know what. Maybe we'll learn at some point. But his mother was taken from him when he was very, very young. Probably not even 10 yet. As I said, he never knew his father. He just knows that his father that is an elf. He doesn't know what kind of elf, he doesn't know where he came from, what he was doing, he doesn't know how old he is. I personally think this is important for his character because elves, by definitions, are pretty mysterious creatures. For example, if you look at them, you don't know how old they are. Basically, every male elf Goofeth encounters might be his father, no matter how old he is or how old he looks. Which is making him... I think that is going to be what's mostly responsible for his attitude towards authority. Because as we all know since psychoanalysis, every authority is basically daddy. Now, he loved his mother very much and she loved him, and I think they had a good relationship, but through some occurrence she was taken from him when he was very young. And since then, basically, he's been, well, up and about, trying to find his purpose. Not necessarily trying to find his father, although that's something in the back of his head every time he encounters an elf. He's just very, very confused about all of that. Also, being a half-elf basically puts him between all the chairs. He doesn't really have a sense of belonging when it comes to societies, be they human or elf. Of course, half-elves are very much expected in the Forgotten Realms setting, basically everywhere. But, still, it doesn't do much for his own sense of identity. So that's about that. There's portrait. I haven't put much thought into that, but there's some pretty good ones here. These are not only the portraits from the original game, because this is some kind of special edition I got here. I think it's called Gold Edition or something. I don't know. It has all the modules and premium modules and some more portraits. It has, for example, the Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2 portraits. I'm kind of tempted a little bit to use Khalid's portrait, because that's what I used for Goofeth in Baldur's Gate 2. Although that was just, well, partly a joke about him romancing Chahira. Also, I'm a bit... There's the Icewind Dale 1 and 2 portraits, which are very well done, but always a bit depressing to me, I think. Also, there's this one portrait that I used for Goofeth in Neverwinter Nights in the co-op with Lucky. I'm not going to use it, I'll just see if I can find it. Well, I'm not going to be using it anyway. Ah, there it is. This is actually uncanny, really. This is how I imagine Goofeth to look like when he's a bit older. Really kind of determined, dark, troubled kind of character. But not really half-elven picture, but from the face, it's how I imagine him when he's a bit older. Anyway, he's young. He's about 20, which is young and well, in general, but for a half-elf even more. This one is nice. It kind of looks like a bit... The facial features look a bit like the other one, but I don't like the armor. I'm sorry, this might take a while, but I've learned while LPing that it's better to take my time than to rush things. You can always skip ahead. I don't really want to do that. Yeah, there was one portrait that I really liked. I'm just going to see if I can find it. This is pretty good, but I think it's a bit too evil. I like this one. This might actually be it, although... Yeah, no, this was the one I was pretty much getting stuck at. This is also good. I think it's going to be between the two of them, but I think this one has kind of a menacing, foreshadowing look to it. Doesn't look like a bad guy, but somebody who could become a very, very troubled person. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. I'm not going to be using one of the Neverwinter Nights portraits. One of the Icewind Dale portraits, I meant. I think they're really, really well done. And I think they work for the Icewind Dale games. I don't think they work for Neverwinter Nights because it's just a completely different style graphically. As are the Baldur's Gate ones. So I'm going to stick with one of those, and I think this is going to be Guthith. Again, I'm not a big fan of the armor, though. So... But the fact is, he might be multiclassing relatively late in the game, or games. So this is generic, this could be pretty much every class. So I'm going to stick with that one. I like it. It's how I imagine his face to look like somewhat. It fits age-wise. He almost looks a bit too old, but that's okay. Yeah. Class. Now, if you remember, or if you even were interested in that, my version of Guthith in the original campaign in Baldur's Gate 2 was a fighter cleric. Cleric of Talos, which is important because Talos to him is an identifying idea. Chaos, anarchy, revolution, destruction, that sort of thing. Which is basically everything old Guthith is about. In a very, well, phlegmatic way almost, I would say, because he's gotten decadent over the year, but he's still... It's more about the destructive element with old Guthith than it is about the chaotic revolutionary element, which is actually productive in his mind. All those ideas are already seeding in young Guthith. He is a free spirit and he wants people to be free, but he's mostly afraid of people, actually, and confused by them. He's rather on his own than mixing with people, and which is why he doesn't like cities. If you remember, old Guthith loves cities, he hates the countrysides. That's something that's going to be changing. But yeah, the ideas are already there, but the thing is, young Guthith, when he set out on his way, he was pretty much mostly around in barely populated areas, or outright wilderness. I think he traveled northwards toward the high forest and spent a lot of time there. So he's an outdoors man. He's actually a ranger. There we go. He knows his way around in the woods. He knows about animals. He knows about surviving out there. Well, that's what he's been doing just because of what he's been doing, how his life was so far. Now, something that might happen in this LP or it might not. I don't know about that yet, but the thing is, this character's going to be developing. And one thing that happens somewhere in Guthith's biography is that he's finding Talos, which puts the idea of revolution and working with people and working people in his mind. That's going to be when his idea of chaos will go away from the peaceful chaos of nature, from everything being in balance and being quiet and everybody leaving him alone. And it's going to be changing into an idea of chaos that's destructive and revolutionary and much more social and involves people. Finding Talos won't necessarily mean that it's going to be some religious epiphany, because Talos is more of an idea than a deity to him, at least old Guthith. But maybe, and as I said, I don't know, that maybe something is going to be happening in this LP. I don't know, some shocking revelation, some personal experience, losing somebody, meeting somebody, who knows, witnessing something that's going to instill this idea of destructive chaos in him. It's also going to be something very, very sobering, I think, very prosaic. A kind of a seizure in his life. And as I said, it might happen in this game, it might happen in Hordes of the Underdark, it might not happen in both of them, but I'm willing to work with the possibility that it might work. If that happens, he's going to multiclass to be a cleric. But until then, he's just going to be a ranger, and he's going to be developing in that direction. Much of this might not make sense to you concerning the coherence of the multiple versions of Gufuth, but I assure you I have thought about that, and it's going to make at least a minimum of sense. Yeah, alignment, this is important. Usually, Gufuth was chaotic neutral. Young Gufuth isn't chaotic neutral yet, because he basically is a nice guy. Old Gufuth can be that too, but young Gufuth doesn't want anything bad to happen to anybody because bad things happen to him. He just wants to be left alone. He has no use for social laws, which is why it's not going to be any lawful alignment, because he never experienced them really, which is the most important reason for that. But he's basically a good person who wants to do good things but wants to be left alone. I think it's fitting. I hadn't even realized that this is dubbed the Rebel, which I think is quite fitting. I wouldn't call him a rebel yet. Oh, maybe I'd call him a rebel, but not yet a revolutionary, which old Gufuth would be. Yeah, as I said, he's a good guy. He doesn't really believe in laws because he's quite detached from them. He never experienced social laws. But he's not going to do any evil things. He's not going to manipulate people for his own gain. At least not yet, which is what old Gufuth did repeatedly. And I think the nice thing about this game engine is that alignment shifts are a pretty realistic option, actually. All the more so in the good-evil paradigm. Not so much in the lawful chaotic paradigm, but there's a good chance that he's going to switch towards chaotic neutral at some point, and maybe that's even going to coincide with... Well, I guess it will, because it's going to be him acting, but this is going to coincide with his journey towards his idea of Talos and revolution and chaos. Yeah, so chaotic good. Now his abilities. I'm not going to try to base his abilities now on those of old Gufuth, because that wouldn't make any sense. There's going to be at least 30 years between those versions, and a lot can change in 30 years. But there's some ground rules. Basically, there's nothing he's really bad at. So everything's going to be at least average. He's kind of he's a reasonably smart fellow. He knows things. He's able to learn things by living. I mean, he survived in the wilderness basically more or less on his own. So he's going to have 14 wisdom. He's not a very analytical person. I'm going to leave his intelligence at 10. He's not dumb, and he's not completely empty-headed, but he's not analytical. He is smart, but it's more of a spontaneous, improvising sort of well, wisdom. At least that's how I see wisdom, as opposed to analytical intelligence, which he's not very good at. He's a reasonably likable fellow, so I'm going to put his charisma to 12. But as I said, he's been away from society pretty much all his life, so his people skills leave something to be desired. But he's a reasonably likable fella. He's much more of a dexterous person than he is strong. He doesn't mind going into melee. In fact, he likes it, but he's going to be focusing more on ranged, that is bow combat, because Well, he's basically been a hunter for a very long time, and that's the weapon he's most used to. The other weapons, the melee weapons he's going to be using are going to be mostly light weapons that he's going to be able to use in a flashy, dexterous sort of way, for which I'm going to be using the weapon finesse skill, I think. Now, living out in the nature is bound to make you tough at least a little bit, and also a little bit strong. But I think the way he's set up, he's mostly a dexterous person. Yeah, let's get that up to 16. And there we go. Slightly above average strength and constitution. Above average wisdom. Slightly above average charisma. And pretty good dexterity, which is probably what he's been focusing on his personal trainer mostly. And that's going to be that. Packages I think we can ignore. Those are just for automatically generating skills, but I want to mess up my skills by myself. Thank you very much. And how does he look like? I'm always a bit annoyed that there's no specific half-elven body. This looks a bit too brutish for him, but it's the only opportunity we have. I mean, we can only make him fatter, and that's not going to do anything. So that's going to be that. His head, wait a second, I thought there was one. No, those are half-orc heads. That possibly. Looks like a bit of rugged outdoorsy, but young. Don't like the beard, though. Yeah, that was fitting for old Guthith with the piercing and the cowlick. That's a possibility, but nah. If the hair wasn't so shiny, that would be perfect. That's a tiefling head with the horns. Yeah, wait a second, what about... Nah, he's not bald. Again, not a fan of the beard. Also, he would look like Lurdek, like that. Like Lucky's character from the co-op. So it's possibly... Nah, that's too old. Yeah, I think it's actually going to be that. As I said, not a big fan of the beard here. Oh, no. No, that's not it. Also, why would you have cornrows? I think those would be not the most sensible hairdo for living in the wilderness. Yeah, I mean, he has shiny hair, but still, he looks young and determined. That's going to be him, I think. Tattoos. I don't know why he would have tattoos, so we're not going to give him any. I think he will have some in the future, but not quite yet. No, something basic. That perhaps. Oh. No! Oh no. Well, the idea is we want to... I think that. That's reasonable. Let's leave him at that. Skin color, I think he's a little bit tanned. Just a little bit. Well, actually, no. The skin color's alright. Hair color... like a light brownish thing? That? No, that's almost grey. That's not good. That? It's a bit too light still. I think that's good for him. Maybe one... Yeah, that's good. That's good for him. Yeah. Yeah, I can live with that. Looks snazzy. Strapping young lad. Oh!
Get on them! Attack, I say!
This was pretty loud for me. I don't know how loud that was for you. Sound settings, I'm going to review the first session when I'm done. They should be alright, but... Alright. His name is obviously Guthith. Let's put him at 20. And he doesn't have a last name. He probably has one, but he doesn't know what it would be. We are not going to be needing that, but I'm not going to be writing in another one. It's important anyway. And that's good, he doesn't have a deity. He has had no contact with religion one way or the other. Yeah, let's get to the voice. Again, apologizing if this is too loud. Brooding Dark Hero.
By my direction, attack! No quarter! Time to die!
Voice is a little bit too old, I think.
Strike at them! Attack! Let the earth take you! Perish as you should! Taste of my wrath! I need healing. Tend to my wounds.
To the fight, my friends! That's it for you! Have at thee! Oh, I'm in need of a healer's touch!
I like that voice.
Tend to me!
Now! Strike swiftly!
Show them your steel! Attack! Time to spill some blood! You're no match for me!
I hear the battle calling! Attack!
Time to spill some blood! Show them your steel!
I want to see suffering.
Once more into the breach, my friends!
To the fight, my friends!
Yeah, but, yeah, it does sound mature, that's not good. Where was that? Yeah.
Time to spill some blood!
I hear the battle calling!
Time to spill. You're no match for me! Feel my fury! You're going down! Get on them! Attack, I say! The battle is on! I'll kill you! You'll see! All fun and games!
Nah, I think, as boring as it is, I'm going to
Time to spill some blood!
stick with this
You're no match for
typical
me!
fighter one. He's not going to be talking much anyway. Alright. We're almost ready to start the game. Just some last words about Goofer and his life so far and how he ended up in this place. As I said, we don't know much about his childhood. We know that he doesn't know his father and that he's been out in the wilderness for a while. I think from the Sword Coast he actually traveled north when he first set out after his mother's death. Into the high forest where he basically did what in the end made him a ranger. And at some point he must have ended up in the Silvery Marshes, which are just north of the high forest. And there I think he found refuge in this academy of this, if what it apparently is, of this Jogan Joganson. I think he liked it there because it was a remote area. Just little people. It was kind of a skeleton society, but not really a confusing society to him. Not really something that he was afraid of. It was just outcasts and people on their own gathered together. With somebody who could assume a safe father role for him because he definitely wasn't his father. I think he likes it there. I actually think it's something that he enjoys more than always being out in the wilderness. I think it's put him at ease somewhat. And that's, I think, where we're going to leave off. The next video is going to start with a little movie, I think. And I'm apologizing in advance for it being laggy, which it will. The Neverwinter Nights movies, which I realized from the original campaign, I can't record because they're going to be laggy. But I also can't just take the movie files like I did in Knights of the Old Republic and insert them into the footage because they're in a format my Mac can't work with. For some reason. But I don't think it's going to be too horrible because, first of all, excuse me, I don't think there's going to be too many movies, if it's anything like the original game. And those that there are mostly narratively text-based, so it's not going to be too horrible. And they're not going to be long. That's what we're going to be doing. Let's get on with this game. Let's play it. Let's all have fun. See you in the next one.